One of the most powerful corporate empires in history found itself outmaneuvered by a teenager who knew exactly what to do with their rotting trash. In the late 19th century, the banana was a rare, exotic luxury in the United States. The market was entirely dominated by the United Fruit Company, which maintained massive corporate steamship fleets to control the trade. But these monopolies had a logistics bottleneck. Because transport was slow, 15% of their cargo ripened too quickly on the journey. They threw it away at the docks because the soft fruit couldn't survive the bumpy inland rail transport. For a monopoly this large, it was cheaper to discard perfectly good inventory than it was to fix a rigid distribution system that wasn't built to handle it. Sam Zemery was a 14-year-old Russian Jewish immigrant who arrived in America with no money, no English, and a one-way ticket. While working at the Alabama port, Sam watched those piles of discarded fruit. He calculated that even if the bananas were too ripe for long-haul shipping, they were still a high-value asset if you could reach a customer fast enough. He took the $50 he had saved from years of odd jobs and offered to buy the company's rejected fruit on the spot. This was the start of a retail arbitrage play. By buying an undervalued asset in one market, the port, he could resell it for a profit in an adjacent market, like the nearby local towns. This was a deliberate attempt to profit from the structural blind spot of a massive corporation. The plan immediately hit a wall. The trains taking his inventory inland moved too slowly, and the heat was turning his ripe stock into a total loss. Sam jumped off the moving train and headed for a Western Union office. He used the telegraph to message merchants at every upcoming station on the line, offering them a steep discount on the fruit arriving that afternoon. Looking at this railway map, you can see how he modified the distribution network. He wasn't waiting to reach a destination. He was turning the railway line itself into a series of high-speed, hyper-local markets. By pre-selling the inventory at each scheduled stop, he cleared his entire stock before it could rot, walking away with a significant profit. United Fruit noticed. A teenager was flooding their regional territories with cheap alternatives, and it was cutting directly into their high-margin premium sales. The company responded by dumping their own banana prices below cost to bankrupt him, while simultaneously restricting his access to the rejected fruit at the docks. Sam's position as a middleman was precarious. As long as he relied on a competitor's waste, his business remained vulnerable to their control. To survive, Sam decided to stop relying on United Fruit. He needed to control the entire supply chain long before the fruit ever reached an American port. This represents the process of vertical integration. His first move was purchasing the Cayamel Fruit Company, which gave him control over his own shipping fleet. But the ultimate defense against a monopoly is owning the physical land where the product grows. Unlike his competitors, who manage their empires from offices in the U.S., Sam moved directly into the jungles of Central America. He worked in the mud with the laborers to clear land, purchased thousands of acres of fertile soil, and secured the cooperation of local power brokers to plant his own crops. To expand this operation, he needed a massive amount of capital, but traditional banks saw jungle agriculture as far too risky and refused to lend him money. Sam turned to underworld lenders, taking on debt at 50% interest just to buy out his conservative partner and gain total control of the company. By the time the dust settled, Sam had reverse-engineered a corporate empire, insulating his business by owning 90% of his own supply pipeline. Sam was no longer a small-time trader. He was a peer to United Fruit, matching their prices because he controlled every cost from the seed to the dock. But this level of vertical integration creates a new kind of pressure. When your entire business model depends on a foreign supply chain, the ownership of foreign land becomes the company's highest priority. As Sam's land holdings grew to encompass a massive portion of the local infrastructure, he found that protecting his investment required direct influence over the local political systems. The teenager who started out selling rejected fruit had built a system so massive that its survival now depended on controlling the very laws of the countries he operated in. In Part 2, we'll see how this need for control led Sam to move beyond business and into the world of staging coups and replacing presidents.